When working with data, we can gather information more easily when it is being represented in a graph. This brings us to something known as pie charts. Pie charts are circular graphs. This means that we need to use 360 degrees in our calculations. Remember to make use of a compass and also a protractor when drawing in your sectors. There are two types of data which will affect how you calculate the size of your sectors for each pie chart. Firstly, if you have been given frequencies, you need to start by finding the total, and then you can perform your calculations to find the number of degrees needed for each sector. Once you have your total, you can work it out like this. We take the frequency, or number of items being counted, and divide it by the total. Remember, fractions mean divide. You then multiply this by 360, since there are 360 degrees in a circle. So basically, each part of a pie chart shows a fraction of a circle. Let's take a look at our example. I need to create a pie chart showing the number of students in different sports houses during a gala. First, I need to find the total number of students participating in the gala. When I add the frequencies, I get 40 students. Step 2 says that I then calculate the degrees. Remember, each sports house represents a fraction of the whole circle, or pie chart. So, to find the degrees for the students in Scarlett House, I would say 12 out of 40 times 360 over 1. I can cross-cancel 360 and 40. This gives me 12 over 1 times 9 over 1, which is the same as 12 times 9. This gives me 108 degrees. To find the angles for the students in the Jade House, I would say that there are 10 students out of 40 times 360 over 1. Again, I can cross-cancel 40 and 360. This gives me 10 over 1 times 9 over 1, which is the same as 10 times 9, which gives me 90 degrees. To find the angles for the Azure House, I'm going to say 18 out of 40 times 360 over 1. After cross-cancelling, this gives me 18 over 1 times 9 over 1, which is the same as 18 times 9, which gives me 162 degrees. We always check our answers by adding them together. Our answer should be 360, since that's the number of degrees in a circle. So 108 plus 90 plus 162 does work out to be 360, so I know my answers are correct. The second way that data can be presented is in the form of percentages. Since percent means out of 100, we already know our fraction. Take a look at the same example, but this time using percentages. Since we are dividing our circle up into sectors, we are still finding a fraction of a circle. In other words, we are still finding a fraction of 360 degrees. However, now we don't need to spend time adding it all together, since we know that the percentages should add up to 100. This means that if the Scarlett House has 30% of the students, we are trying to work out what 30% of a circle is. In other words, what 30% of 360 degrees is. 30% gives me 30 over 100 times 360 over 1. I can cross-cancel the 360 and the 100. This gives me 30 over 5 times 18 over 1. 30 over 5, or 30 divided by 5, gives me 6, and 18 over 1, or 18 divided by 1, gives me 18. 6 times 18 is 108 degrees. For the Jade House, I now find 25% of 360 degrees, which gives me 25 over 100 times 360 over 1. After cross-cancelling, I get 25 over 5 times 18 over 1, and I can simplify those fractions to say 5 times 18, which again gives me 90 degrees. For the Azure House, 45% of 360 degrees is 45 over 100 times 360 over 1. This cross-cancels to 45 over 5 times 18 over 1, which gives me 9 times 18, which is 162 degrees. These are all the same measurements as I got before, so I know that my answers are correct. And now that we know our angles, we can start constructing our pie charts. Before we start though, there are some key points we need to include in our charts. The first thing we need is a heading, and we usually begin this heading by saying a pie chart showing. The second thing we need is a key, followed by colored sectors. We need to make sure that the colors in our sectors match our key, and that the colors in our key match our sectors. Lastly, we are going to use our frequency or percentages as labels. We will not label our pie chart with degrees or with words. That is what our key is for. So let's see what our examples look like in the form of a pie chart. I will begin by writing a heading for each case. For my frequency table, my heading would be a pie chart showing the number of students choosing each sport, but for my percentage table, it would say a pie chart showing the percentage of students choosing each sport. The next thing I'm going to do is draw in my key, and in my key, I will give each house a color. Now I can begin by drawing my pie chart, starting with a compass to draw a circle, and then I will draw a radius. It is a good idea to draw in your sectors going from the smallest angle to the biggest angle. This is helpful because the last angle won't need to be measured, since it will already be drawn in after you've done your second to last angle. This is especially helpful when you are working with reflex angles as your biggest angle. So in this case, since the Jade house had the smallest number of students or smallest percentage of students, I'm going to start by measuring the angles for this house. According to my calculations, I should be measuring 90 degrees with my protractor. So once I've made a point, I'm going to draw in my next radius and color in my sector the same color as the key. Using my protractor, I'm going to measure my next biggest angle, which belongs to the Scarlet house. According to our calculations, this should measure 108 degrees. Once I've made a point with my protractor, I'm going to draw in my next radius and color in the sector the same as what my key indicates. Now I need to complete the sector for the Azure house, but since it's already there, all I need to do is just color it in. I can now fill in the frequencies and percentages for each house onto my pie charts. And there you have it. My two pie charts, the one on the left representing frequencies and the one on the right representing percentages. Pause the video to practice working out the size of the angles for the following sets of data. If you would like to go ahead and draw the pie charts, you're more than welcome to, but we're just going to check to make sure that you get the calculations correct. My first table has percentages in it. I know that my denominator must be 100 because 35% is 35 over 100. Since I'm finding a percentage or a fraction of a circle, I multiply by 360 over 1. After cross-cancelling, this gives me 35 over 5 times 18 over 1, which simplifies down to 7 times 18 and gives me an answer of 126 degrees. For vegetables, I'm finding 15% of my pie charts. So I will say 15 over 100 times 360 over 1. After cross-cancelling, I get 15 over 5 times 18 over 1, which simplifies down to 3 times 18, which is 54 degrees. The angles for dairy is 20 over 100 times 360 over 1. After cross-cancelling, I get 20 over 5 times 18 over 1, and after simplifying, I get 4 times 18, which is 72 degrees. Protein should have 25 over 100 times 360 over 1. Cross-cancelling leaves me with 25 over 5 times 18 over 1, and simplifying gives me 5 times 18, which is 90 degrees. Lastly, to find grain, I say 5 over 100 times 360 over 1. After cross-cancelling, I get 5 over 5 times 18 over 1, which simplifies to 1 times 18, which is 18 degrees. For question 2, before I begin working out the angles, I first need to calculate my frequency. When I add 3, 2, 9, and 4, I get 18. This is my denominator. 3 out of the 18 students chose hockey as a sport, so I'm going to start by saying 3 out of 18 times 360 over 1. After cross-cancelling, this gives me 3 over 1 times 20 over 1, which is the same as 3 times 20, and this gives me an answer of 60 degrees. For tennis, 2 out of the 18 students chose this as a sport, so multiply by 360 over 1. This gives me 2 over 1 times 20 over 1 after cross-cancelling. This simplifies down to 2 times 20, which gives me 40 degrees. To calculate swimming, I'm going to say 9 over 18 times 360 over 1. After cross-cancelling, I get 9 over 1 times 20 over 1, which is the same as saying 9 times 20, which gives me 180 degrees. Lastly, 4 out of the 18 students chose netball, and times that by 360 over 1. Cross-cancelling gives me 4 over 1 times 20 over 1, which is the same as 4 times 20, which gives me 80 degrees. Remember that when we are multiplying fractions, there are a number of ways to get to an answer. Cross-cancelling and simplifying only helps us get there with smaller numbers, which makes it easier to work with. As for everything else in the pie chart, the hardest thing will be making sure that you are measuring correctly on your protractors. So make sure you know how to measure angles before you attempt to draw pie charts.